Una vez más, aquí Santi Alberú para todos vosotros desde el Evolution Mallorca. Este es el segundo episodio y hoy tenemos con nosotros de nuevo un invitado de lujo. Acabamos de hablar con Anthony Dodmantel y está frente a mí Asif Kapadia. So pleased to meet you, so pleased to talk to you. Am I pronouncing this right? Because I think I'm not.
You are. There's no wrong. It's perfect.
But there is.
No, there's not. No, only how people write it down.
How you said it?
How did you say? It's fine. Honestly.
Kapadia.
Yeah, perfect. It's perfect.
But this is a kind of a Spanish way
I like
with all
it.
the vowels.
Yeah. It's an Indian name. It's a Spanish way of saying it. It's perfect.
Thank you
nice
so
to be
much.
here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So many things to ask you. We were just talking about a couple of things that we are going to discuss. You are here in this festival because you are presenting your new film. It's called 2073, 2073, and it's funny because you are well known because of your documentaries. That's also a word in English that is not easy. It's documentaries. Well, you're well known for your documentaries, but you are not only a documentaries director. You started doing fiction, and then here you are presenting what could be that some kind of switch, some kind of mix, some kind of come together of these two beings that live inside you as an artist. So I wanted to talk about this. Do you remember the first time you saw yourself as a documentary director, and how do you connect with that time now that you're back to fiction?
Okay, good question. This could take 20 minutes.
I'm sorry.
So I'm now in my 50s, right? I'm grown up. And I would say I've had many lives. And I started making drama. So all of my first films were drama, short films, and my first feature films. My debut feature film, The Warrior, was a Western, which premiered at San Sebastian and
Really?
won a prize at San Sebastian in 2001.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Great.
So I made, and it won the BAFTA, the kind of British Academy Award for Best British Film. So I made a lot of drama. I made a lot of short films. My student films won prizes at Cannes and various awards around the world, and they were all fiction. But I always was interested in like naturalism and working with a lot of non-professional actors. So I made films with street kids in India. I made children with like actors and non-professional actors. And I liked kind of naturalistic, like kind of a Ken Loach inspired style. But I wanted it to be very cinematic and very visual. So I made films in India. I made a film in the North Pole. I traveled around the world a lot. But I love sport. And I love, like, there's certain stories that I just think work better as documentary or non-fiction rather than fiction. And so we had a child, our first kid, and when you have a baby, you want to be around, right? You want to be at home. And my dramas meant I traveled the world a lot. I was away a lot. So I wanted to be at home. And that's when I got the chance. Somebody contacted me and said, we're making a film about Ayrton Senna, the racing driver, the pilot. Would you be interested? And the truth was, lots of people, documentary people they'd spoken to didn't get it. I love sport. I remember Senna racing. I'm not a Formula One nut, but I remember it, and I thought it was a really interesting chance to do something different. And for me, the interest is often in experimenting. I want to tell a story. I'm a director. I don't class myself as a drama or a documentary. I'm a director and a storyteller, and I use whatever the form. So I've made short films, long films, drama, documentaries, TV series, commercials. I've done a bit of everything. The most famous work is the trilogy of biographies. So Senna, Amy, Diego Maradona.
Mm-hmm.
And they became interesting because I found a particular style, which was using archive. No interviews. Not like what we're doing now, right? No talking heads. Because my background was in fiction, I thought, how can I tell a story in the most cinematic way? And that, for me, became to stay in the present. Not to kind of have someone talking about the past and then you show the past and you go forwards and backwards in time, but to make it feel like you're watching a fiction film.
Like you're watching a story, you have a
That was the idea.
protagonist, you have the antagonist, you have
It's a fiction, and you write the script, even though it's real, like a screenplay. So Senna was like a classic beginning, middle, and end, and my reference would be like Scorsese. So
Love that.
I'd think, okay, in Raging Bull, how many boxing fights? The real boxer, Jake LaMotta, had 150 fights, say. But in the film, maybe there's 7 or 8. So when you have a Formula One pilot, he raced more than 100 times, 120 times. How many races can you show in a film? Well, let me look at Scorsese. If we have 7 or 8 races, each one has to be important because he moves the story on. Each one must be visually different. Each one must be cinematic. And so that was my reference always, was to use drama, but to do it in a documentary and to use factual footage.
I didn't know that.
And then I'll give you another example. Goodfellas structure, where you go through someone's life.
Yes.
And then right at the ending, they slow time down.
Yes.
And they tell you the time and they tell you the day. So in Senna, we do exactly the same thing. We go through someone's life, but the final act is 3 days.
Wow.
Friday, Saturday,
That's
Sunday, the exact time. And immediately, the audience know, oh, something important's going to happen. So we race through life and championships, and then suddenly the final act is Imola. And so that was me kind of looking at how do drama tell stories like this, and how can I apply that to documentary?
That's amazing. That's so clever. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, because after the trilogy, you have directed, as you said, you are a creative soul, and you have done many things. You did the Federer story, The Last Days of Federer. But there's no fiction after the trilogy, right? Until this point.
I did a ballet film, actually. That's an interesting one. I did a ballet.
I'm sorry.
A ballet called Creature, which if you get a chance, I'll send that to you. I'll show it to you.
Oh, I would love to.
It was made during lockdown, where there was no audience. Nobody was allowed to go out anywhere. And so we made this film with these dancers, and the dancers are incredible. And I put the camera in the middle of all of the dancers. So it was a story told with movement, but where we are not observing it from afar, but we're in the middle of the dance with really, really quite amazing.
So I'm curious about that, because I'm guessing that after the trilogy, you have everybody knocking at your door, asking for you as a filmmaker, as a documentarist, and you say no. I'm sure you have said many no's to many people around these years. So why is that?
So I made a film because, someone said, would you be interested in making a film about Ayrton Senna? He had died like 14 years previously. With Amy, it was quite soon. It was the opposite. She had only died like that year, and we made the film. And the reason I wanted to do that film was I wanted to make a film about London, my city, where I'm from. Everything I love about London, music and culture, and a young Jewish girl who's into jazz and hip hop, who's funny and like smart and plays music and is really different and original. But also what I don't like about my culture and my country, which is the paparazzi and the media and how they attack and how the business can kill the artist. So I wanted to kind of look at that. And the audience, how they enjoy when someone suffers. With Maradona, I love soccer, right? I love football. My favorite sport. I play football, I watch football. So it was a chance to tell the story of like the greatest, craziest, most amazing guy who was so brilliant and who did something that nobody will ever do. Nobody will ever go now. No coach or the greatest player in the world will never go to a team that's about to be relegated and in 3 years make them champions.
Absolutely.
Nobody does that. They only want to go to Champions League teams. They only want to go where they've got money.
Maradona is I understood soccer thanks to that movie. My parents took me to see matches every Sunday when I was little. Never liked it.
Really?
Your movie
made
me have kind of an interest.
Well, because he's drama. The thing is, you're looking for drama. You really want to find interesting characters.
So sorry, yes, I interrupted you. So you were saying those were the reasons you did those 3?
Yeah.
What were the reasons you said no to other offers?
I say the problem. What became, because of those films and the success of those films, and the show business, the business changes, suddenly people phone you up and say, will you make a film about me? And it's very different, because when you make a film about people who, Senna and Amy, they're not there. You have the estate, you have a family, but you are able to observe. What happened is the world's changed. Streamers have come along. Commercials and advertising has died. Music videos have died. Nobody watches any of that anymore. So now the budget that you would make maybe a music video, now they make a documentary about a band. And now it's more publicity. Now it's much more like you have to make everyone look good. And that's, for me, slightly less interesting than doing a character study. There are some amazing people, but I've met very few people that are as interesting as Senna, Amy, and Diego Maradona. And because they're flawed, they're imperfect.
Sure.
I think people are imperfect and they're more interesting. So that was the reason why a lot of football players, a lot of football teams, a lot of football coaches, every sports person, boxers, lots of musicians, lots of bands, they got in touch, but they have to somehow emotionally affect you. And most of them didn't kind of emotionally affect me. So I was like, I don't. Plus, I take a long time making those films. So I said no. But and then to come back to your drama question, I have been waiting for the right moment to go back to doing drama. And in a way, what I love about making documentaries is I make them backwards. Like, I might have an idea, but I don't know what the idea is. And so I'll interview someone, and then I'll go and find some footage, and then I'll just start editing. I don't even know what I'm editing, and I'll start editing, and then I'll interview someone, and I'll film something, and then I'll edit, and I'll film, and I'll research, and I'm trying to work out what the film is.
Okay.
With drama, I find the very, very obvious sort of write a script, cast the film, raise the money, shoot the film, edit the film process doesn't work for my brain. When I'm doing documentaries, I do everything at the same time. Depending on my mood, I start editing first, and then I film, and then I steal some archive, and then at the ending, I figure out what the film is. And I just like that way of, I can make the film with a smaller crew, with a smaller budget, and I have more creative control. And when I'm doing drama, I have less control, bigger budget, bigger crew, more questions, more, you need to know exactly what you're trying to say. And at the beginning of the process, I don't know. So I found I slightly fell out of love with fiction. I found it harder and harder to forget that I'm watching a movie star, pretending. Whereas when I'm watching Amy Winehouse, I know that's Amy. She's the real deal. That's really her singing. Senna's really driving. That's Diego Maradona. And he does change. Physically, he's changing. It's not an actor doing a change that looks, to me, self-conscious. I just stopped believing.
I swear I have here something written down that is, I felt that you still in this movie had more confidence or in the images that you took from others, like you had the eye more ready to evaluate which images were iconic or good than, but and on the other side, the trust you had on your own, it was there, but it was, I don't know how to put it. Let's put it into a question. Do you feel that you have the eye to recognize when an image is iconic, one that is not of your own?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because that is a big part of being a director. And again, like I said, because I come from a visual background. I studied graphic design. I went to art school, and I, have always taken photographs or filmed things. And so the idea of knowing why something emotionally works and is powerful, and not to worry about it being technically perfect, but what it does to you emotionally and how it connects, is something that, some people have, some people don't. I feel I have it, and I feel like that instinct is important. And also, it's to do with ego. Like, it doesn't matter if you shot it. It's to do with, is it right for the story?
Absolutely.
Because anyone who's ever actually made a film, I'm not always holding the camera. The cinematographer holds the camera.
Sure.
It's still my shot.
Sure.
Or if I have second unit on a film and I'm doing a bigger film and we're filming here, and while we're filming here, somebody's over there doing a wide shot, just because I'm not physically there doesn't mean it's not my shot.
Absolutely.
So in the same way, when you're making a film entirely with archive, I make a point of saying, I didn't film any of it.
Absolutely.
And I have to understand that if that's, with Senna, that was the big decision. People thought, well, if you haven't filmed someone, then you're not a director. And I would say, no, I think that's bad directing. Bad directing is when you're aware of the director. It would have been very easy in Senna or Amy for me to do an interview with a nice plant and a frame and a bookcase and light it. And then you'd go, oh, there's the director. And I'd go, but for me, bad directing is when you're taking out of the film and you're taking out the story and you're aware of the filmmaking. Sometimes people do a very complicated shot and you go,
Yes.
that's amazing. I go, yeah, but I'm not in the story anymore. Now I'm watching
I'm
something
out.
else.
I'm seeing.
So for me, the archive question comes with saying, what is the best way for the audience to be lost in a character and a story and not care who directed it? They don't even know who made the film. That's fine. A lot of people
Absolutely.
had no idea who directed Senna,
Absolutely.
but they never watched Formula One. They didn't like sport. They fell in love with him. They never liked Amy Winehouse. They love her now. You're like, and they cry. You know, if you get emotionally engaged, who cares who the director is? The story works.
Absolutely. I don't know if you would answer me this question. Let's go in a second to 2073. But have you seen? And again, if you have, you don't want to answer that. That's okay. Have you seen the real life version of Amy?
The what? Sorry.
The real life version of Amy, the Amy Winehouse movie.
Fiction.
Yeah, the fiction.
Not the
oh,
real life.
sorry, I didn't. My English had to betray me sometime.
I haven't seen it.
The fiction
Yeah,
of Amy.
no interest.
No interest.
Have you seen it?
Yes.
And
Nothing. It has nothing to compare to your documentary. Your documentary showed me a world and showed me everything I needed to know, and it connected with my soul, and the fiction didn't. The power of the story is there,
yeah,
and you can tell the story of Amy 100 times, and you will be interested by that 100 times. So the movie is not the worst movie I've ever seen. I mean, I had a nice time watching that, but there was no power in the images.
see, I have made 3 biogs. Senna, Netflix have just turned into a series. It's about to come out.
Yes.
Right. They even called it Senna. Bloody hell.
Yes.
They didn't even change the title.
Yes.
Right. Then there's this movie made of Amy.
And sorry to
And,
interrupt you.
and then Diego Maradona, someone took the story and turned it into a series.
But sorry to
So
interrupt you, but
flattery obviously is
you
like,
know it's because of you, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, we know this.
We know.
We know this.
You told the world.
Someone has to do the work
Yes.
for people to then copy it and say, now let us make some money out of it.
Absolutely.
Doesn't mean it's any good.
It does. Okay, let's go back to 2073. There are some concepts that I love about your documentary. Talking about it in a very wide way. You said it before. It's about how the world is going crazy, about all the most the subjects, the most worrying subjects we have to face right now as a society. I'll throw you a couple, and you tell me how do you encounter them, and what do you know about them now, and why were those important to you
Sure.
to put in the documentary. The I'm going to start to say it right. Weaponization of social media. I'm saying it right?
Say it again.
Like a weapon?
Weaponization.
Weaponization. Thank you.
Weaponization, yeah.
Had to happen.
No, it's good.
Weaponization of social media. What can you tell me about that?
It's just, there's a lot of subjects in the film, okay? And I'll give you a little bit of backstory is that this film comes out of me being worried about where we are and where we're going. And it started during lockdown, okay? We had Brexit in the UK. This idea that people could be tricked to vote to make their lives worse.
Mhm.
Why? Right? Because people can be tricked and lied to and promised things, and people are promising you things they're lying. They don't care. They've got what they wanted. So Brexit was in a way the beginning. After Brexit in the UK, you have Trump winning in America. And I was working in America doing a TV show, Mindhunter, for David Fincher, I did, right? So then I watched it happen in the US, and it was the same lines. It was the same script they used in the UK for Brexit that was used by the kind of Trump campaign. So then I was like thinking, what is happening? People are coming on television, they're on the BBC, they're lying. And we know they're lying. They know that we know they're lying.
Absolutely.
And no one's stopping them. The
Absolutely.
TV news people are not questioning them. People are being racist. We know they're being racist. Don't know they're being racist. not a problem. They become more successful and more powerful. So all of this was making me kind of think of what is going on. So then I started like talking to journalists, right? I just started interviewing my favorite journalists in the US, in Brazil, in the UK, in India, in Europe, all over the world. I just said, what is going on in your country? And every one of them said, yeah, something bad is going on. And it kept coming round to various things, whether it's politically, whether it's the rise of fascism, authoritarianism, dictators, the climate. We're in Spain. This is what's just been happening this week in Valencia. You know,
100%.
everywhere. Like everyone's worried. Things are getting worse and worse. But the common denominator, because I kept saying, yeah, but why now? Why is it happening everywhere now? Is it just me? He said, no, it is happening everywhere now. And they said the reason is technology. And the technology, the way it has seeped into everyone's lives is we all have a phone, we all have a device, and social media, and how that means that we all think we're seeing the same thing, but what you see is just for you. And what I see is just for me. And I think you agree with me, but you're seeing something else. And she's seeing something else. And that is what we mean by like the weaponization was it basically says, what do you like? And it doesn't take you in a positive way.
No,
What is your worst fears? What are you most afraid of? Are you afraid of immigration? We'll take you there. Oh, you're afraid, you're afraid of this or that or whatever it is. Immigrants. Oh, we'll take you there. Yeah, they're going to steal all of our jobs. Yeah, violent. They're going to, and that is what happened was the technology was used to make everyone more divided, more afraid, more angry and upset. And technically, more likely to vote for these populist leaders who say, I'm not like all of them, I'm going to say. So that's what came out of the conversations, and that's some of what we tried to talk about in the film.
It's funny because you're the second person that I interviewed today, and you're the second person that talked me about Brexit and about how wrong that was.
It's like the biggest cheat, fake. It was corrupt.
It was.
They broke loads of laws, they broke loads of rules, but because they won, the government in power, Boris Johnson, all of these people, they never investigated it. It was foreign influenced, whether it's Russian money, American money. It was basically people from the outside. And this is really important. Technology is moving so fast, none of us can keep up.
Absolutely.
The laws are from like 50, 60, 100 years ago.
Sure.
The laws cannot keep up with the technology. And by the time the technology has affected something like Brexit or affected an election, the people in power are not going to question it. They win. And that's what's happening everywhere.
Absolutely. And not only the laws, but the ability to understand what's going on.
And spread misinformation.
Sure.
To confuse you so that you don't trust anything. You stop watching the news. You stop reading newspapers because everyone goes, well, you can't believe any of it. And that is the scary thing because there's nothing in common that is true. There's no facts. If there's no facts, there's no trust. If there's no trust, where are we? We're in a post-truth era.
Absolutely. And funny enough, talking about Brexit and about Europe, wouldn't you agree to think that Europe is kind of the resistance, it's kind of the future in that way? Because we see like the Middle East and Asia and the United States they are mainly the main characters on the documentary part of 2073. But Europe is still somehow standing. You know that all that progressive way of thinking is still a little bit here.
There's certain things that we all have issues with, right, which are going on in the world right now. But in terms of laws and in terms of having the ability to collectively bargain with, the tech companies, Europe is more powerful collectively than any one country is individually.
It is.
It's like obvious. So the UK not being a part of Europe means it has less chance to fight back or argue for laws. But the people who wanted the UK out of Europe are very happy. For example, in my country, and it's in the film, they want to attack free healthcare. They want to go to all of these places where we, with our taxes, get things for free. Like, you can go to a hospital. They want it to become more like a US system. They want education to be more like a US system. Only the rich can afford it. Poor people, doesn't matter. You can, don't worry about it. So obviously, in order to holding power to account is really what our film's about. And the journalists who talk about it all get attacked because they try to hold power in account. They get threatened, they get prosecuted, they are sued. Many journalists around the world are killed. This is the issue that is going on, is the people that try to report on and do their jobs as journalists are personally attacked and humiliated or threatened in order to say, shut up, go away. And yeah, absolutely. In that case, being a part of EU and being a part of a community, obviously it makes sense. Obviously it's better because you're stronger when you're collectively and you have the strongest kind of financial basis, but also legally everyone wants to be a part of that because they want to make money here, and we are out and it's crazy. And I don't know when we're going to be back in.
It angers you. While you're watching 2073, you are in constant awe of what you're seeing. It's a great movie. And you were talking about it first. It's an independent movie.
Yeah.
Maybe it couldn't have been done any other way.
It's tricky doing films like this, right? When we started off the conversation, if I had said I'm going to make a biog about this famous movie star, how much money do you want? I mean, it's not as easy as that, but generally they'd be like, sure, we love your work. Absolutely. And when you do something political, and where we are now, this is the honest truth. We are in a place where there are a few companies that have a lot of power globally. So in the old days, when I was making films, you would make a film and you would sell an individual territory. You'd sell it to Spain, you sell it to Italy, you sell it to Germany and France. If you're lucky, you make a film that sells all over the world. We were lucky with Amy. And eventually Senna was seen all over the world, right? Even in countries where it was never released. In China, it's a huge hit in China. It was never released.
And it was downloaded, it was...
Yeah, in India, everywhere. Like,
really?
Everyone's seen it. Everyone has seen Senna. And Maradona as well, actually, right? And then you do something political and people don't want to upset politicians, right? So suddenly it becomes trickier. But if you have a film and you have a kind of, you're desperate to make something and tell a story, it's like by any means necessary. You have to find a way. And in this case, it was interesting, is kind of going back to the independent way. I also want to make a film that is seen on a big screen. That's why I'm really enjoying that we're here at Film Festival, because for me, the point of this film is to show it to an audience. Absolutely. And for an audience to be in there collectively, watching it, experiencing it, and importantly, then talking about it afterwards and saying, so what are we going to do? How do we solve this? If you think there's a problem, we have to solve it. And I don't want us to keep relying on politicians to do it all. We have to know what we want and fight for it and push for it. So that was, this is it's a lot of hard work doing films independently, but it's where I began and I kind of like it.
And it's funny because I know you had the opportunity to have another career, to have a career which is less exciting maybe, but
I like a challenge. I like a challenge and I like the freedom
it's obvious.
Of being
That's
my
amazing.
own boss, and I decide what I want to do. And I feel the world has changed from the days when I made Senna. It feels so innocent.
Absolutely.
Those days were great, but it was so innocent. We're not in that place anymore. Where we are now, I just came back from the US. Everyone thinks it's the end of democracy.
Yeah.
It's 7 days away. We are 1 week away. And it's like, we could have told you this a long time ago, the rest of the world, but they only just realized, right? Whenever you're ready, America, catch up, right? So when I started making this film, 2073, I interviewed people and they said to me, the end of democracy may be 20 years away. And then a few years later, when I was making the film, they said, it may be 10 years away. The film's coming out. They're now saying it's 1 week away. When the film comes out, it may be over.
Well, we hope. Well,
but
let's hope
this
not.
This is real.
Let's hope not.
It's real.
Let me ask you 2 more questions. We don't have much time. I don't want to steal the night for you. But there's this 3 things I want to ask you about your career. The first, you just mentioned Mindhunter.
Yeah.
Great show. Love it. Love it as a viewer. Love
it's a great series.
It's great.
Great series.
What was your experience with that? And what was your relationship with Fincher? Because for what I've read, for what I saw, he seems to be a character.
He's amazing. Fincher's like amazing. He's like very clever, very funny, technically like incredible. He invents cameras, he invents technology. Whenever he makes a film, he will have invented something that becomes an industry norm.
Why you? Did he call you?
So this is the story. I don't know if it's real, but let's pretend it's real, right? So it all comes back to Senna. I made Senna. My first film was a film called The Warrior. I made it in India with an actor called Irfan Khan. Irfan Khan then becomes a big star. He's in Spider-Man, he's in Jurassic movies, and he did a film with Angela Jolie. And the producer of that film, because he was her partner at the time, was Brad Pitt. So Irfan, my actor from The Warrior, says, you should check this film out. Brad Pitt is a car nut. He loves racing cars. He's doing a racing car film now. He sees Senna, loves it. This is the story. I'm having a pizza with David Fincher in Pittsburgh when we were filming. And I'm like, David, I'm not being funny. Why am I here? Like, you could have picked any director. And this is the story David Fincher tells me. So Brad Pitt like knocks on his door, says, you got to watch this movie. And it's Senna.
Wow.
He's like, I just saw it. It's amazing. You got to watch it. So Brad Pitt and David Fincher are watching Senna. And I may be mixing this bit up, but I think they call their friend up, Steven Soderbergh.
Yeah.
And he's there. And somehow Brad Pitt, David Fincher, Steven Soderbergh are watching Senna. And this is like maybe 5 years before I knew them. And then Amy comes out. And Amy is winning like lots of prizes and is a success. And Soderbergh is a big Amy Winehouse fan and liked the film. He said, what about that guy? So I happened to be in America, and David Fincher phones me up and says, I'd like to talk to you about a project. I happen to be in LA. We meet for breakfast, and he's like, I've got this show, and it's about serial killers and I was like, oh, I don't really want to do anything gory. I'm not sure. I read the script, which is by a British playwright, Joe Penhall, who I knew from the UK. And what was amazing was it was all dialogue. And it reminded me of Zodiac, which is one of my favorite Fincher films, right? So it was a bit like Zodiac as a series, and it was all psychological. So when I meet him, I said, look, what's really interesting is Mindhunter is about two guys who are trying to understand the psychology of crimes and killers. And I said, I've just done a film, Amy. And the whole point of me making Amy was I was investigating a crime. And the way I did it, the investigation was I interviewed people audio only. I would turn up with a sound recorder and I would interview someone to try to understand the psychology of how, because I thought a young girl of 27 dying is a crime.
Absolutely.
Why did no one investigate it? So my film was me investigating the crime with audio interviews, and I pieced it together. And I told this to David, he's like, I like that. So that's basically what the show was two guys trying to understand psychology and creating this program to say, if you understand how killers think, you can stop killers in the future.
This is great. This is one of the greatest stories I ever heard.
Most of it's true.
Irfan Khan, another one that had to happen, but he's great. I didn't know you had this movie together. I knew it when I was researching for this interview. How is your relationship with him at the moment?
Oh, it's a sad story. No, it's a very sad story because he got cancer and he died during COVID.
I cannot believe this.
He
I'm
had
sorry.
it's really
I should
sad.
have,
No, it's fine.
researched
I'm
better.
glad you remember him. He was amazing.
I not only remember him, but I always enjoyed seeing him.
He was always
I
the
was
best.
into-
He was any movie, even he's in it for one scene, you're like, he's the best guy.
He was
in
in the Jurassic Park ones, and I loved seeing him.
Darjeeling Unlimited.
Yes.
Everybody loved Irfan.
Yes.
And he was supposed to do a Ridley Scott movie. He was supposed to be in a Christopher Nolan movie. Everyone wanted to put him in a film, but then he got cancer and he was ill for a time. And then he came to London.
I'm so sorry.
And he was having treatment. And then the doctors just said, look, you should go back to your family. So he went back to India. He died very young. It's very sad.
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to brought it up.
No,
as I
it's
did,
good
but
to talk about him.
at the same time,
I'm glad you brought it up because he was very special, really, really special guy.
he seemed to be. To end on a happy note, I have to say your speech at the Oscars is one of the best I ever heard.
Why?
It is.
I've never watched it.
It's precise.
Okay.
It's short. it goes to the movie,
Right.
it goes to Amy,
Right.
it goes to who it has to go.
Yeah.
Many times at the Oscars, people start giving thanks to old relatives and,
Yeah.
people
Yeah,
we don't
yeah,
really
yeah.
care. It's a TV show.
Yeah.
You understood it and you shot who you had to
Thank
shot.
you. It's so funny.
Do you remember that?
I've
What
never
do you
watched
remember?
it.
What do you remember about that?
I've never seen the Oscars. I mean, even like I have a copy somewhere, but I've never gone home to watch it. It's so weird. I have the memory of it, but I've never watched the show, the TV show.
Wow.
So it's nice for you to say that. You're the first person to say that.
Not really. Congrats on that.
It's so
speech.
nerve-wracking.
I'll
Yeah.
let you enjoy the rest of the night. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the joy
Thank
you've
you.
given me through the years. I've had so much fun with your work.
I'm going to send you some other films.
I hope so.
I'll send you some
I'd
links.
love
Give
to
me your
do that.
details.
I'd
I'll
love
send
to
you The
see that.
Warrior. You should see the one with very fun. He's basically playing like Clint Eastwood in a Sergio Leone movie,
I'd love to see
but
it.
in a kind of
I
a spiritual way.
I tried to look after it and it's nowhere.
I know.
So
It's a long story. Harvey Weinstein. That's another day, I'll tell you.
we have.
Well, it came out in the UK.
I'm
It was
sorry.
a
I know
big
there's people
hit.
Here. I know there's people here that wants me to end, but he said Harvey Weinstein, and I have to go on.
So my
guys.
first
I'm sorry.
film.
5 more minutes.
My first film. I make my first film. I wrote it. I directed it. I traveled around India. We shoot this film. Harvey Weinstein sees it, says it's the best film I've seen this year. I'm going to buy it. I don't own the film, right? I just make the film. He gets the film. The only territory he doesn't own is the UK. In the UK, it comes out. It wins lots of awards. This is Harvey Weinstein in 2001. I then fly to New York because the people who I made the film for sell it to Harvey Weinstein. I go to a meeting. It's a long table with 25 people sitting on a table. They're all being really friendly and really nice and chatty and charming me. This is great. They all love me. This is great. Harvey Weinstein walks in. Nobody looks at me again. So I'm like, oh, something's coming. And he says, here's a pile of scripts. You have to pick a script. Your next movie has to be with me. And I said, I've read all of the scripts. I didn't like any of them.
Wow.
But he says, well, you have to do it. I said, well, I'd love to do a film with you, but, we'll find something that I want to do. He goes, no, you have to do one, and the next one, and the next one. You have to sign a 3-picture deal. And I'm like, I don't do contracts. I've never had a contract. The reason why I was able to make 2073 is I work for myself. Right? I never had a contract with anyone. He says, you have to have a contract. Why should I spend time and money promoting your film if I don't have a guarantee you're doing your next one? And I said, we'll find something. Cut a long story short, he said, if you don't sign, I won't release your film. I said, well, that's not how you get me to sign a contract. He said, okay, no one will ever know. They're all still sitting around the table. Everyone else. No one will ever know your film existed. I said, there's no way I'm going to sign that contract. He said, I'll kill your film. I went, okay.
What a bully.
So he killed the film. Wow. So the reason why you cannot find it in Spain now in 2024 is because they bought the rights, and he did that to a lot of filmmakers. Many of them signed the contract and they never made a film again.
Wow.
And I refused to sign a contract, but by doing that, he killed my film. But I'm like, I'll keep working. I'll do whatever the hell I want to do. And one of the reasons why I started to make documentaries was I didn't want to deal with those type of studio people anymore, where they just basically act like they own you. I'm like, I'm never going to do that. I'd rather stop making fiction films than work with people like that. So the film is very hard to find. Irfan became a big star, though. I'll tell you another little side story.
Please.
3 people phoned me up after they saw the Warrior with Irfan. 3 people. Ridley Scott called me, said he'd like to work with me. Martin Scorsese called me, and Terrence Malick called me. So screw Harvey Weinstein. Like, that's enough, isn't it? Terrence Malick, Ridley Scott, and Martin Scorsese.
Now I just want to know how is Terrence Malick on the phone. Now I just want.
He's great.
But
He's very charming. Hey, Asif. He's very friendly. He used to live the longest phone messages. He just chat.
Love his movies.
It was great.
Thank you so much for sharing this story.
Thank you.
I have loved it. And again.
But that's just a little warning. Once a bully, always a bully.
What a tyrant. What a bully.
Yeah.
Mr. Kapadia, thanks so much.
Thanks.
I'm so happy to be here with you for a moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you.